Hello, all of my fellow YouTubers. It's Zan Harold. Thanking God for allowing me to see another day as well as you. All right, so the topic today is the importance of prepping. By now, we should all know, due to everything that has occurred and is still occurring this year with the pandemic, why it's very extremely important to prep. And even if you think you have enough, you don't. um, you guys, and then if you guys are noticing the pattern in the weather, I was in New York a couple of weeks ago, and Hurricane ECS, it's pronounced really differently, came through there and left millions of people, especially in New Jersey, without power, without lights for days, for weeks. And New York was without power for like 30 to 45 minutes. And it was horrible. Especially being in a city such as New York, we have millions and millions of people who live there, and then everything's like on top of each other, and buildings and whatnot. That's just, it's not good. It's so vital for us to prep, to make sure we have more than enough food, make sure we have more than enough water, make sure we have more than enough supplies and things that we need in these days and times. Nowadays, I'm finding that people are looking for land, which is very, very wise to do, even if you have to live in your car on the land. Of course, we do realize that there are a lot of restrictions, and land that comes with restrictions, and there's also land that comes with no restrictions, which is more appropriate for people who are trying to live on it in an RV or a mobile home or even your own car. So these land, some of this land you can find for low as $500 down. If you have to pick up cans or do little side hustles just to get that $500 down, I think it's wise. Now the thing about that is, some of this land come with trees. If I were you, if you're on a very, very small budget, I wouldn't get the land with trees, because it's very expensive getting those trees cut down. Or sometimes you can find out if the trees worth value, the lumber, then lumber companies will come in there and cut them down for you, and they will also give you some other profit that they make off of those trees that's of value. However, if some of that lumber is not of value, then you're going to, sometimes I didn't find this out until I had got the property. I had put down on the property that some of it, you will pay $250 to $500, even $800 per tree, getting those trees cut down. And I thought I did extensive research on getting land through YouTube, but they say the best teaching is experience. So that's something that I learned. I'm like, oh my God, how am I gonna get all these trees off of this property? The other thing, if a wise thing to do, if you have a little bit more money to invest, you get a property that don't have any trees on it, and you have the city come and check out, if is the electric available, or if you need a septic or whatnot, because that stuff could be really costly too, up to $1,500 to $3,000 to $4,000 with permits. I had to find that the hard way. And you could get like a mobile home put on it, or sometimes, or maybe a couple of mobile homes. It depends on the size of the property, and you can live in one and rent out the other, or you could live in your RV and rent out the other two mobile homes. So I'm learning more and more now on what to do and how to do it, and how to maximize my dollar. Still, being able to help somebody by providing a place for someone to stay, and also me gaining income to be able to further take care of myself, and also having stability, which is very, very important these days and times, because we're seeing now we can't trust the government, you can't depend on the government. And if you're renting a house, if you're renting a home and it's not yours, that's a problem too these days and times, with everybody filing for, a lot of people filing for unemployment, losing their income, and it's just really, really crucial. I don't know, with the president's executive order with the mandated the evictions, I don't know if they stopped the evictions or if they're still going through, and that's just very unfortunate. But it teaches me and I hope it's teaching a lot of you that you just cannot trust and depend on people. The best thing to do is own your own everything, own your own car, your own property, your own house. And we do know these things cost money, and we know that money's been very hard to come by for a lot of people. So just if you could fixate your mind on ownership, that was the most wise thing to do, especially now. I mean, always, but especially now. We see that we see how they're handling this pandemic. We see that it's more important to the powers that be to keep the economy going, other than to protect the health and well-being of its citizens, which is ludicrous to me. But I'm learning, like, which we should have already known, but I'm learning, like, wow, this is really life. Like, you really have to be able to provide for yourself and your family, and to take care of yourself, and to not really spend like that, spend money like that. Try to save as much money as you have, as you can. And for a lot of people who can't, and I know how difficult it is, especially when you work in these certain jobs, they don't pay a lot, and the money that you are getting, it goes right out the door, especially when you have children, because you want your children to have a stable place to stay. So you take your income that you get from these jobs that don't really want to pay that much, and you put it all towards the rent, the light, the water, and the gas. And I just think these days and times, I think it's more important to save the money and try to sacrifice however you may, whether that be get an RV or get a van, live out of it. It's not easy. I've done it before. I made myself stay in my car. It started off with, let me see how it's going to work. Well, no, actually it started off because I have a choice. When my daughter was younger, we went through a lot. We went through a lot. So a lot of you single mothers, y'all can relate to this. But we had to live in a car. That car wouldn't even get me past a mile. And I would park that car at night at apartment complexes. Wake up in the middle of the night because I hear tow trucks about to try to tow it because the tags were bad on the car. And during the day, we would come, before she had to go to school, we'd go and wash up at the McDonald's, and I'll take her to school and I'll go to work. But we lived in a car. It wasn't easy, but I did it till I saved money and it got us a place to stay. Nowadays, sometimes, I'll just stay in my car because I got used to stay in the car, and I wanted to get used to that just in case I use it as an option or whatever. I'm really used to it. And I actually, to be honest with you, it's quite enjoyable for me because I'm an outdoor girl. So, I don't like being indoors all the time, so I'm used to it, but you have to make sure that you're parking in safe places. Back to the land. Yeah, you have to really look into this land before you start putting down on it. You could go through title. I would suggest that you go through a title company because they make sure that everything's legit. It's a little bit more money to go through title companies. Sometimes these landowners, they'll tell you, oh, you can just go through our company and everything's okay. But to make sure that everything's fine, you should go through a title company. Another piece of property that I bought, and it was a cheap property, but it's in like it's in a prime community. I mean, really nice community, really upscale, but the property was affordable. I met this guy at the courthouse, which was really cool because I got to look into the history of the property. I got to see that he was actually the owner of the property, how much the property's worth, the value of the property, the restrictions and whatnot. This particular property, it doesn't allow RVs, it doesn't allow mobile homes, anything that's like they call low end, you can't do. You have to have a minimum of an 800 square foot home on this property. You have to lay down concrete. I even talked to a contractor, and they were telling me the least amount to build on this property would be $100,000. I was like, oh no, I could find some other people to get this done, but there's no way. But I was just like to try to encourage you guys to try to get some property. I even saw property in Georgia that was like $3,000, and I know that sounds like a lot these days and times, and it is, but it's reasonable. Where I mean, it's what do you say it? How you say it? You can do it. You can accomplish it. It doesn't seem like okay, like if it's like $1 million, then we're all like, oh, $1 million for the property, but 3,000, that's not too far fetched. even if you can make an agreement or make a deal with this person. Because I had people pay me like, oh, every week I pay you till I pay the property off, or every month I pay you till the property's paid off. People who have bought property from me. So you might can make an agreement with the owner to see if you can, pay in increments to get that done. And that's a very, very, very important part of prepping. I know they talk about getting the food, but you got to have a stable, strong foundation before you can start getting all these preps. Even if you're getting all the preps, because I would like to encourage you to still go get your preps, because they're talking about food shortages, which I believe will happen, and in electric outages, which I believe would happen. I'm from Houston, Texas, so I've been in a lot of hurricanes, so that's what made me a prepper. But it's important to have a stable foundation. You have say for instance, you get all these preps. You got all these preps now. And so you accumulated with 2 or 3 years worth of food. You have water. Well, I say it says 6 months supply of water, but water is very heavy. And then you have your supplies, you have your generators, you have your first aid kits, you have your medications, you have your tools, your building tools, you have your garden tools, you have your plants, your vegetables and all this kind of stuff that you're planting, and then you have your animals. You have all these things that are part of your preps, and you're renting a house or an apartment, and you can't pay it. Now look, not only you have to have somewhere to go, but all your preps do as well. And I can tell you, a person who's moved so many times in life. I'm telling you, I moved so much. I was just like, oh, hysterical. I moved so much. You lose or you break something every time you move. So it's very important to have a strong foundation, a very strong foundation. Solidify that, and you do it in property. So, and also with the prepping, we see nowadays, since the pandemic, everything is so much more costly, with the food, and now we need masks, and now we need our alcohol and vinegar and vitamins, and there's so many different things. Even with me traveling during this pandemic, I found that it's very expensive, because if you're traveling by way of airplane, of course you can't take all these liquid substances, things such as alcohol and your mouthwash and even your toothpaste, and for us ladies, when we shave on our arms, we're now, our shaving stuff to keep from bumping up, and you can't take these things. So when you go to other cities, and I went to New York, you have to buy this stuff again. And I was like, oh no, this is too much, or if you didn't bring enough masks, you have to buy more masks where you are. And in other places, especially New York, they're so much more costly, these things, than they are in Texas. I get alcohol for like $1 or something. In New York, it's like $4 or $5. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I mean, for a little thing like that, small bottles. So it's very costly nowadays, but yeah, get your soaps, you guys. Get your bleaches and your Pine Sols. And what I do now, a lot of people, they totally avoid this product, and I don't understand it, because it works probably better than everything else. Ammonia. And it's very, very, very economically feasible. It's only like $1 or something. This one bottle of ammonia, it'll last me for months, because ammonia is so strong. You could take a tab of ammonia, stretch it out with a little water. I'm telling you, take it far. That stuff smells too. I can't see no germs living in ammonia. So stack up on your ammonias and your sprays and all that stuff now before the second wave hit, because the second wave, when we see how they're handling the first one, still haven't gotten it in control. So if they haven't gotten it in control, and then we have a second wave, oh my. I just say be prepared to stay in the house, and do what you got to do. Okay, with that being said, you guys, you be blessed and not stressed. If you are being quarantined right now and you don't want to go out, and I understand for said purposes, you can always go to zanherald.com. I have plenty of non-perishable food items that you can order, and I also have hazmat suits, the goggles to protect your eyes. Now, you guys be mindful. They said that viruses come through your eyes, your nose, your mouth, and your ears. So be mindful that, everybody's talking about the mask. Then I tell you to cover up your eyes and cover up your ears. When I was traveling, I made sure I had my glasses on, my goggles on, my earplugs, and also my mask. And even walking around the city. So yeah, be blessed, not stressed. ZanHarrell.com. Until next time, peace out.